Vance Law Firm here to answer your legal questions. Go ahead and give us a call. That number is 420-WSFA. As always, we remind our viewers that you are a personal injury attorney. Talk about the cases that you handle.
Yeah, we handle cases where people who have been injured, either slightly, severely, someone might have gotten killed, and it was no fault of their own. You know, someone else caused it by being negligent or reckless, and it runs the spectrum of stuff you could think of. And I always tell people, err on the side of calling. We can tell you our opinion, and if it's not what you think, you can call someone else, but make a phone call, because there's so much information that we can give you on the front end that may help alleviate a lot of issues and concerns as you go through that process.
Sometimes you have to jump in on the worst days of people's lives and ask some of the hard questions, and that usually involves insurance.
It does, yeah.
What surprises people? What are some of the questions they have immediately if a really bad accident happens, as far as life insurance, health insurance, car insurance, all the different components?
Yeah, it can all be, and you and I were touching on this before we came on the air, that, you know, unfortunately, sometimes we talk to people who have lost loved ones, and we had this, you know, someone called in, we got in touch with a family, or they reached out to us, and it's always tough because something terrible has happened. In this particular case, a woman had lost her, well, the child was on life support, the husband had passed, the accident was yesterday. She had called to ask some questions, and when she really got us on the phone, she didn't know, she talked to my law partner, but she didn't know what questions to ask. And so we've done that a lot. So we were, you know, walking through the different things. In fact, I think he told her, look, let me kind of walk you through what to expect. And if I don't cover something, if you still have a question, ask. Because usually we kind of know what things are going to be faced with. And at the end, you know, terrible state of mind, you know, she's dealing with so many things. And all we try to do is just say, hey, find someone you care about, someone you trust, and let them reach back out and ask some questions. And we said to her, you know, hopefully we're trustworthy. We feel like we are. We've been through this with other families, but talking to someone you trust and believe is very important, because a lot can go on, and there are so many factors. And so, you know, we tell in this particular situation, hey, you know, we've got to do a little fact finding of a lot of things to find out where to look. You touched on it, Jasmine. Are there credit cards that have life insurance policies attached to it, or are there burial benefits attached to some other life insurance policy? All those things that are going to affect her, along with the horrible stuff that she's dealing with, are going to pop up. And so having someone that she can, and we told her, look, we don't, you know, our fee agreement doesn't apply to that stuff, but that's part of our service to walk people through all the different aspects that they're going to have to deal with in a terrible crisis like that. And if we can find the different insurances available, you know, part of what we do is sort of deconstruct the accident. All right, what happened? You know, who has insurance, who might have insurance, who should have.
And is that something you do? Because I can imagine you lose a loved one, even a mother or a grandmother. You don't know what policies they had. You don't know who they were paying, who they were talking to. Is that something you assist with? Is some of that finding out the policies?
Yes, but it's so difficult. You can imagine. I mean, you know, I guess we could, if they wanted us to come rummage through their loved one's stuff.
The mail,
right,
and,
yeah,
and things like that.
Where do they keep their important papers? But yeah, normally just walking them through what to ask, you know, where to go check, where to look for, get the documents together. And most importantly, you know, don't get advice, or don't, you know, you're going to have people coming at them from different ways, you know, whether it's an insurance adjuster, whether it's a neighbor that thinks they know what to do or say. In this particular case, there was an ex-husband that had come in from another state, storming in, making all these demands, and they never had a good relationship to begin with, and now, you know, she's the one that needs to get the questions answered, because there are some hierarchies to that. You know, who's entitled to make those decisions, and when something terrible has happened, it's a tough time. And so it's a lot of what we do is do a lot of listening, kind of guide them in the direction. Hey, maybe check this, maybe check that. There's not a rush to do anything, but there is kind of an importance of, we need to get something started, because what we touched on a minute ago, the fact finding of, hey, the action report. if there's other parts, we've got to put somebody on notice. Don't get rid of that vehicle that caused the accident. Don't get rid of the vehicle that was involved in the accident. In this case, there was a motorcycle. So, okay, let's get lots of pictures. Let's don't get rid of the motorcycle. So there's lots of things, and it goes back to what I try to always say, call and ask, because we can walk you through if ultimately, in her case, if ultimately there's no insurance, and that unfortunately happens sometimes, if there's no insurance, we'll let you know. That we're still going to talk to you. We're not going to say, oh, there's no insurance, see ya. We're going to walk her through. We're going to get her through this whole process. And if there is insurance, we're going to make sure she collects all that's available and she's entitled to. Same thing for her for her husband, for her daughter, and those can vary. She had a question because she had a situation where a child had been injured in the past and their money was in trust. And she asked those questions. We said, yes, that could apply if the daughter survives. She's a minor, so yeah, it would have any money for her would have to go into trust. If she doesn't make it, it's those hard conversations that we've had over the years, and we are accustomed to that. It doesn't make it easier because it's tough on us as well. But she's going through a horrific situation. But sort of being there, guiding her is a service that we do. We're happy to do it because we know it can be so overwhelming with what people go through.
If you have a question, give us a call right